about to go down. He's on his way. Patiently they stood. They sang, who's afraid of the big bad wolf? It's the same old song. When he's gone, they're bulletproof in a house of straw with an old tin roof. And again next week, he gonna blow their house down. Just a merry-go-round on the devil's playground. They'll huff and puff and shoot it up. Never can get quite enough. Hoping every high gonna last a little bit longer. There ain't no such thing as coming down, too numb to see. They're sorrow bound, always on the prowl for something a little bit stronger. They wouldn't put it down, Lord, if they could. Stand around and sing, who's afraid of the big bad wolf? 3 young men, and this time minus one, hanging round again. This time with a gun.
I'm Johnny Ashley in the Hood in the Woods. Today we are in Matewan, West Virginia. You can find me on Facebook as The Real Hood in the Woods, and you can find me on Instagram as Abandoned in Appalachia. For more mountain music, check out Clovis Draper's YouTube channel, and I'll put a link for that in the description. Also, if you would like to help me by financially supporting my channel, I'll put a link to do that in the description as well. Matewan has built a large wall around it, and I thought the wall was to keep out Kentuckians, but apparently the wall is built to keep out the flood water because they had these massive floods in the 70s. In 1883, the railroad opened its first line into Logan County, West Virginia. In 1885, Mingo County formed from Logan County. That same year, the town of Matewan was established. It was owned and set up by the Stone Mountain Mining Company. The Battle of Matewan represents the second of 3 battles fought in the Central Appalachian Coal Wars. 15 years after the Civil War, in the 1880s, mine companies began using the company store system. Miners were only paid in company scrip that was redeemable for either paying rent in their company houses or to spend at the company store. The miners were only paid for the poundage of coal that they removed from the mine. They did all of the bracing, drilling, and blasting for free. The miners were also required to buy all of their own tools and dynamite, because this is the good old days when you used to be able to go and buy dynamite. Unskilled miners building bracing could cause cave-ins, and hitting pockets of natural gas could cause mine explosions. Hundreds of miners could be killed in a single explosion or cave-in. It is cheaper to hire another man than to buy another mule. So the miners were forced into debt and then forced to work dangerous conditions until that debt was paid. The mine companies would hire private detectives to make sure that miners in debt could not leave the camp. The miners began to unionize and strike, and soon the private detectives began to specialize in strike busting. The Baldwin Phelps Detectives out of Roanoke, Virginia became the go-to detective agency that mine companies would go to handle their labor disputes. The coal mines feared unions so much they would fire any worker that joined a union and evict them from their company-owned home. In 1922, 80% of all the miners in West Virginia lived in a company town. In the early 1920s, the United Mine Workers Union launched a campaign to drive up union membership in the Tug River Valley. Soon they had 3,000 men who had signed up for the union. Those same 1,000 men were also fired and evicted from their homes as a result of joining the union. The United Mine Workers Union set up homeless camps for the evicted miners. The coal companies controlled all the land and all the money in West Virginia. Therefore, they controlled all the politicians too. They even thought they could control cable testament. but they were wrong. The mine companies made a mistake by letting Testerman be the mayor of Matewan, but Testerman made a fatal mistake by letting Sid be the police chief. 7 years before Sid Hatfield became the police chief of Matewan, a few counties away in Harlan, Kentucky, striking miners and their families slept on the train tracks to keep the coal from getting shipped out. Baldwin Phelps detectives ran a locomotive down the line. They cleared the tracks by killing and maiming everyone that was in their way. Valentine Hatfield was the grandfather of Devil Lance Hatfield, the leader of the Hatfields during the Hatfield and McCoy feud. Valentine had a half-brother called Jeremiah, and Jeremiah had a son called Jacob. Jacob was 18 when the feud kicked off, but he was not one of the major players. He settled down with Rebecca Crabtree, and they had 12 children. They were sharecroppers in Pike County, Kentucky. Pike County, Kentucky is bordered on the western side by the Tug River. Across the Tug River lays Mingo County, West Virginia. 1891, the Hatfield and McCoy feud ended. That same year, Jacob had his 10th child. He named his son William Sidney Hatfield, but folks just called him Sid. William was Sid's distant cousin Devil Lance's Hatfield's first name as well. William's also my dad's first name, just saying. Sid grew up working on his family's farm. Later, he was a blacksmith and a coal miner. Sid had a reputation for being a tough guy. His two hobbies included drinking and fighting. Imagine the shock the respectable citizens of Matewan received when their mayor Testerman named rough and rowdy Sid Hatfield to be the new police chief. Sid Hatfield had been a coal miner. He had lived their life, he understood their plights, and now he had power. As Matewan's population simmered, the Baldwin Phelps Detective Agency tried to install machine guns around town, but old Sid wouldn't allow it. On May 19, 1920, 13 Baldwin and Phelps detectives boarded a train in Bluefield, Virginia. Their job for the day was evict miners from their homes who had been fired from joining the Union in Matewan. Two of the detectives were Phelps brothers, as in Baldwin Phelps Detectives Agencies. Needless to say, these two brothers were none too popular around here. Sensing trouble, the Mingo County Sheriff, Fred Burgraff, met the detectives at the railroad station. He was accompanied by a deputy. It was a rainy day, but the detectives didn't care. They forced women and children out of their homes at gunpoint and dumped their belongings in the muddy streets. While Sid was trying to intervene on the family's behalf, the angry miners began to arm themselves. After a long day of evicting people, the detectives ate at the Urias Hotel before catching the 5 o'clock train to Bluefield. Sid and Mayor Testerman lay in wait for the detectives. When they seen them exit the hotel, they went to head them off. They confronted them on the porch of Chambers Hardware Store. Now these buildings behind me is going to be the Urias Hotel and the Chambers Hardware Store. Old Sid reached into his coat, but he didn't pull out a gun. He came out with a piece of paper, but written on that piece of paper was an arrest warrant signed by the Mingo County Sheriff. Not to be outdone, the Phelps brothers produced their own warrant for old Sid's arrest, but after further examination by Mayor Testerman, he declared the warrant fraudulent. No one knows why the sheriff had signed an arrest warrant for the Phelps brothers and then had been with them all day without arresting them. The warrant that the Phelps brothers produced was confirmed to be fraudulent, so if old Sid had gone with them, odds are he wouldn't have made it back. Stories differ on who fired the first shot. Sid claims that Al Phelps fired the first shot and killed Mayor Testerman. Another version of how the battle began was Sid had moved himself into Al Phelps' blind spot and shot him point blank with no warning. The third version of events includes Sid shooting Mayor Testerman on purpose. Armed miners and bystanders had gathered around, and when the shooting started, they opened up fire on the detectives. Pop, pop, bang, bang. So down here would have been where the shooting happened, and then the old depot would have either been on this side of that yellow building or on that side of this yellow building. Pop, pop, bang, bang. Lee Phelps ran for cover. He ran into the old post office and tried to hide, but old Sid seen where he had gone. Old Sid came in here and he shot and killed him. Come on, Sid. Pop, pop, bang, bang. Now here's the post office, and if we look up here on the wall, we're going to have one bullet hole, and then there's a second bullet hole here. Here is going to be a third bullet hole, and if we come over here and look, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 more bullet holes. As the smoke cleared, 7 of the 12 detectives lay dead, and out of that 7, that included the 2 Phelps brothers. Besides the mayor being killed, 2 more townsfolk were killed and 4 bystanders were wounded. One of the bystanders was named Bob Mullins. Earlier that day, he had been fired from his job and evicted from his home for joining a union. The other townsperson killed was an unarmed bystander named Tot Tinsey. The way I like to end my stories is by telling you the National Guard got called in to calm everybody down, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. Old Sid here got second place by having the state police called in to calm everybody down. Sid complied with the state police, and he had all the guns stacked neatly on the floor of the hardware store by the time they arrived. Sid and 19 minors were arrested and charged in the shooting. The Baldwin Phelps detectives, now with only 1 Phelps brother left, did everything they could to get him convicted. The detectives could control people's actions, but they could not control their minds, and that jury of Mingo County residents hated those detectives. Everyone involved in the shootout was found not guilty, with all charges dismissed. You remember when I said that hiring Sid was a fatal mistake for Mayor Testerman? And then do you remember how I said that in one of the versions of events that Sid shot Testerman on purpose? On June 2nd, 3 weeks after the shootout, old Sid over here married Mayor Testerman's recently widowed wife. Her name was Jessie Menard. Soon Sid was charged with another shooting. Him and his deputy, Ed Chambers, had allegedly shot up the tipple of another non-union mine in neighboring McDowell County. But it was a setup. They got a lot more lead thrown at them than they threw out. According to court records, C. Lively not only talked Sid and Ed into committing that shooting, he was also a key witness against them. Union leaders claimed that the whole shooting event was fraudulent and used to justify the detectives' next action. When Sid had to make a court appearance, the McDowell County Sheriff, Bill Hatfield, promised him protection if he would come unarmed. Bill Hatfield was a distant relative of Sid's. By accident or design, Bill Hatfield was away at Craig Springs, a healing springs resort in Virginia, the day of court. Sid and Ed showed up to court unarmed with their wives in tow. Baldwin and Phelps detectives lay in wait. They ambushed them here on the courthouse stairs. They opened fire. As Sid and Ed were struck, laying on the porch bleeding out and dying of lead poisoning, the last sound they heard was their wife's screams. The assassination of Sid Hatfield was completed here. None of the detectives were charged in the assassination of Sid. If you're counting, that's 12 dead in total with no convictions. As the Cold Wars faded from memory, so did the warriors that fought in them. That wasn't until 1987 when the film Matewan was made. The movie was filmed in the famous ghost town of Thurman. Although not winning any awards, the movie was still very well received. This tipple can be seen as a backdrop in the movie. So there's 4 doorways along the downtown, and I do believe that in the movie that this is the doorway here that the shootout happens on. I'm a big fan of respect, paying respects, and just being respectful in general, because respect is just the lubrication to life, just to make everything run smooth. Now I could have got Mr. Sid here some flowers, but I don't think Mr. Sid would appreciate flowers. I also don't think Mr. Sid would appreciate another guy giving him flowers. So to give him something that he would like, I just want y'all to see this here. We got some of that Southern Comfort, some of Tennessee's finest, and we're just going to leave it here for him, a little offering for Mr. Sid. Thanks for everything you've done for the working man. That's my video. I hope you liked it. If you did like it, you need to hit the like button and you need to hit that subscribe button. Don't be watching my stuff for free.
Let's take off.